Hey guys, John back again, and today I want to talk to you about 44 Magnum and why I think it is the most versatile and the most practical Magnum that you can run. So, 44 Magnum has a long and storied history. It's been around since 1955. It's a very well-established cartridge, and right out the gate, I want to establish that I consider this the one of the quintessential reloaders cartridges, and I'm looking at it from that perspective. Meaning, if you're looking at buying commercial ammunition to shoot this cartridge with, you can still do it, but it's going to cost you a lot more out of pocket. Whereas if you get into reloading a little bit, even with the most basic setup, you can save yourself a lot of money with 44 Magnum and shoot a lot more for the money you spend on ammunition. So, why do I think the 44 Magnum is the way to go if you're looking for a good, powerful cartridge? Well, first of all, let's talk about the brass. And I'm not going to get deeply into the idiosyncrasies of the brass because that takes me a while. This is like my sixth attempt or more at doing this video. 44 Magnum brass is a straight-walled rimmed pistol cartridge. It is easy and straightforward to reload. It is not a delicate. The brass is robust and lasts a long, long time. And we can contrast that with the rounds that have gone before. This is a round of 44-40. Now, 44-40 is a cartridge that I don't reload. I just happen to have this sample piece of ammo, round of ammo. If you look this neck down a little bit right here, those necks on 44-40, and I believe 38-55 as well, sorry, 38-40 as well, not 38-55, are a little delicate in comparison, where guys that reload that cartridge have told me if they load 200 or 250 rounds of ammo, they expect to wrinkle or maybe crease a neck or two because the necks are so thin. So that is not as easy to reload as, say, the 44 Magnum, which has a thicker and stiffer neck. The brass is great quality, and a couple of thousand rounds excuse me, of brass are going to last you basically a lifetime. In fact, this one right here, this is a split piece of brass. I shot this last week or the week before. This is a piece of brass that I bought when I was as ammunition when I was a teenager. I believe it came in one of these boxes that I was buying from the local pawn shop as reloads. So this case, before it split, had been reloaded over and over and over again. And as long as you don't lose it, it'll last until it splits. And you'll get your money's worth, definitely. So, the brass is high quality, easy to reload. Let's talk about bullet selection. The 44 has about as wide a bullet selection as far as weights and designs as you're going to find with any other cartridge. Commercially available jacket ammunition, whether it's soft point or hollow points, available in anything from 180 to over 300, like 310 grain jacketed bullets that are soft point or hollow point. If you broaden your horizons a little bit to cast bullets and like some of the custom casts, like some of the more boutique places that are available on the internet, you can go from anything from 425 to from 125 to over 400 in a cast bullet. If you're going to cast bullets yourself and are willing to buy a mold, you can go with a MEHEC mold or an accurate mold. And there are literally hundreds of designs of 44 bullets to suit just about any purpose that you can imagine. Now, you can find a 110 grain bullet that is a short, fat thing that I call like a death button for small game and plinking, or possibly a combination load with a homemade shark cartridge, up to like a 420 or 425 grain behemoth, just a big old lead slug that's going to penetrate very deeply on a game animal, and everything in between. Of course, the most common and one of the most popular 44 the weights for the 44 is a 240 grain hollow point or semi-wad cutter, and my personal favorite is a 245 grain round nose flat point that works really well in a revolver as well as a lever action. So bullet selection is a big strength of the 44. Now, since the 44 is based on a series of older cartridges, a lot of that data transfers. And especially these days, powders that are traditional 44 Magnum powders, especially the ones from Alliant, are not easy to get. In fact, I haven't seen Unique for sale for a long time. And Unique is my go-to for basically about every general purpose mid-range powered handgun load, so I'm looking to replace it. But everything on the table is loaded with Unique right now. 2400, another staple of the 44 Magnum, is a Unique powder, and is a Alliant powder not available. Do I think that's going to continue? Well, it'll continue for some time, but there are other powders available that perform pretty well with the 44 Magnum, like H110, 296, and the one of the strengths of the 44 is if you can't get your pet powder, you can find a powder to replace it that'll work just about as well. It's not picky about powder selection. It does pretty well with a variety of powders. So another thing that along the lines of bullet selection is the versatility. With the 44, you've got a pretty decent payload in a handgun that is still reasonably sized, meaning it shoots a pretty powerful cartridge, and the guns are small enough and light enough where you can still carry them long distance and all day without getting really weighed down. And in my mind, the cartridge, as well as the guns it comes in, occupies a sweet spot in that regard. So one of the other things as far as projectiles that I didn't mention are these Spear shot capsules. Now, these are pretty neat. Spear has made a couple of different versions of this. I think there were some red ones out a while ago. I've also seen some other polymer ones that are rounded, but these are what I have. I've been using these for quite a while. They work well in 45 Colt. They work well in 44 Magnum. They work well in 357. But right now, I'm loading these up in shot loads and other loadings in 44. And so if you've ever used a 22 or 22 Magnum shot load, you'll find the performance of these much, much better. You can put a substantial amount because of the volume available in these in 44 to actually do some damage with. These are great for squirrels, these are great for grouse, and of course snakes and pests and what have you. However, you don't just have to use birdshot. 3 double-aught buckshot flattened a little bit with a hammer fit right inside and make you a kind of a neat little 3 hits in 1 shot cartridge or round to play with. Those are kind of fun. Another thing you can do with these is what I've done with this. I lost my dad last year, and we decided we were going to load some of his ashes into these capsules so we could go out in the woods and shoot a round or two so at some of his favorite places, so he'll always be there. So that's another thing that those cartridges are useful for. Those capsules are useful for. So let's talk about the guns now. Now, I mentioned that the 44 comes in a variety of guns that are in a size envelope that is very useful. Very true, because if you get an old hog leg like this seems like it's a big, heavy gun. And if you compare it to some of the smaller non-Magnum versions of the Blackhawk, it's a little cumbersome. But weight, in 44 Magnum, weight is a little bit advantageous. I don't want a big, heavy chunk, of a gun, but as far as a 44 Magnum goes, single action, this is an excellent weight because you can put a fairly hot load in this Super Blackhawk, and it behaves really well. This is an excellently balanced handgun, and I had to have a 7.5-inch Blackhawk. I've got a shorter Blackhawk, Super Blackhawk. I had to have a shorter one I had to have the 7.5-inch just because it feels right in your hand and it shoots so well. It makes an excellent truck and hunting pistol. As far as the Red Hawk, or a double action, I think the Red Hawk is where it's at because this is about as good as it gets for a double action 44 Magnum, in my opinion. There are others out there that I like, but I keep coming back to that Red Hawk because it's simple, it's rugged, it has enough weight to allow you to shoot a variety and a good amount as far as volume of shooting of true Magnum loads, and not beat you up too much. You have to carry a bit more weight to make that happen, but that's okay, in my opinion. So, one of the reasons that 44 is popular is because you can run a handgun and a carbine in the same caliber using the same ammunition. Now, I'm going to do another video on this because it's not always that simple because of some other factors that, variations between the guns, and I'm going to talk about that later. But it can be done, and in a 16-inch barrel, the 44 Magnum really comes to life. So you can have a fairly mild load that shoots really well in a handgun that gains 250 to 300 feet per second in that rifle because you don't have a cylinder gap and you have a longer barrel. And it's easier to shoot because the gun is a little bit heavier, recoil is mitigated, and you have a longer sight radius. And so it's all win. And I used to be of the camp with regard to handgun calibers in rifles. I wasn't a big fan because my thought was if I had the weight and bulk of a rifle, I wanted the power of a rifle. And then I started looking into it a little bit more and picked up a 357 lever action, and it finally clicked with me that these things are really handy. They're really light. They're really compact. And you have a really good system there when you've got 8 or 10 rounds on tap. It's just enough. It's kind of like a 30-30 Winchester. It's just enough rifle. This is just enough carbine to get you by in a lot of different situations. Very handy. Anyway, so with references as far as 44 Magnum, they are out there and they are vast. There's a lot of things out there. I'm going to recommend Six Guns by Keith. Elmer Keith, if you're not familiar with him, I would say you must be fairly new to the 44 Magnum, but he was one of the movers and shakers in the firearms industry that got, or the shooting trade, that got Remington and Smith & Wesson to come out with a 44 Magnum ammunition as well as the weapons. And he's got a lot to say about different six guns, and he comes from a different era in American history. And some of his information is maybe a little bit dated now, but I would also say the wisdom still applies. Something more modern is John Taffin's book of the 44 caliber. This is an excellent book. I just got, I think last year or the year before. I haven't read the whole thing yet. I read sections of it. I read the articles he's written in there about specific guns. Just about every modern 44 Magnum is in this book, and he goes deeply into the history of it, back into the black powder era. Also in the back is the publication from the 44 Associates, including Elmer Keith, which had a lot of the developmental data from 44 Special that led to the 44 Magnum. A really excellent thing. I hadn't seen in print before. I'd only heard about it. So, to wrap up here, I think the 44 Magnum has a lot going for it because it's a straight-walled, rimmed, easily reloadable pistol cartridge. However, does that mean there aren't other cartridges that are kind of the same thing or similar? No. You've got 38 Special, 357 Magnum, 41 Magnum, 45 Colt, and a few others. But with the 357, you're going to have a bullet weight selection similar to, not necessarily in the weights, but in range and breadth, similar to the 44 Magnum. 41 Magnum is kind of the unsung hero of the Magnum cartridge world, because let's say it came on maybe 10 years too late. If it came in about 10 years earlier in history, things would have drastically changed, because 41, if I had to do things all over again and I had no guns and I was acquiring guns, I might go with 41 Magnum, because I don't necessarily need the top end of 44 Magnum, even though I like having it. The 41 has more power than the 357, not quite as much as the 44, but it's a very useful range. However, the drawback or the downside of 41 Magnum is that the guns that I might want aren't going to be as available as, say, the 44. I easily found both of these on Gunbroker. Easily found out on Gunbroker. I bought a lot of guns off Gunbroker here late. They've almost all been 44s. Whereas 41 Magnum, and I have looked, comes up occasionally, and you'd better jump on it because the people that like 41 Magnum really like it, and they're looking for those guns too. But hey, if you've got a 41 Magnum, go for it. It's an awesome cartridge. 45 Colt is a little longer in the tooth. One thing I'll say for 45 Colt is the firearms don't seem to be as picky about bullet diameter as, say, the 44 is. But we'll get into that when I talk about carbines. 45 Colt will do just about everything the 44 Magnum will do at a little bit lower pressure. You don't have the problems with brass these days, but again, if I had to do it all again, I might consider 45 Colt. 45 Colt has an advantage because the guns that are available in 45 Colt are really, really neat, where some of those guns are not available in 44 Magnum. And I have a 45 Colt 7.5-inch Blackhawk that is just a little lighter, a little handier than this. And that's pretty nice. However, there's kind of a downside to that because, particularly with the Blackhawks, you can load some pretty serious 45 Colt for a Blackhawk, and my thought is it's going to get a little bit snappy because you don't have the weight of that steel frame. That being the big difference between the two. But anyway, don't think I'm myopic about this, thinking it's 44 or nothing. If you have a straight-walled, rimmed cartridge, you're in pretty good shape as far as a general-purpose utility and survival cartridge. And you can do a lot of really good fun plinking, hunting, shooting, and learning how to hit at various distances. So 44 caliber, I think, is where it's at. I have a long history with the 44. If you've been around the channel at all, you know that I had a blued 7.5-inch Super Blackhawk as my first handgun, and I got the stainless one to kind of replace that because I just missed having that gun because it's a really neat gun. And I think a 7.5-inch revolver, either single or double action, is an excellent truck gun. Particularly when you put a red dot on it, and you can zero it for 50 yards and take care of a lot of problems, and that you might whip the rifle out for. But this is a little bit more compact and easier to stow without being obvious in a truck or a car. But anyway, consider that Magnum pistol cartridge, because I think we're looking at a world at some point that if you can't cast a bullet for it, if you can't reload for it, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage. Just saying. Anyway, I hope this helps you out. And if you're searching for a Magnum cartridge to shoot, I know there is a ton out there on 44 Magnum, and I don't watch or listen to every video on 44 Magnum because we all say the same thing about it. It's a great cartridge. Go get one. However, what I have been seeing is there's a lot of AI crap on gun channels. And one came up on my feed when I was in the gym, and I'm listening to this, doing deadlifts, going, this is all BS. This isn't, because you can easily tell when it's AI because of the voice and all that. And I'm like, the voice is telling me things that I know are not true because I understand this cartridge pretty well. So that's another reason I wanted to put this out, because I'm an actual person that's had actual hands-on and has reloaded thousands of 44 Magnum rounds. I don't know everything about it, but I know more than the AI does. And it's very sad that a lot of our gun content is not by actual people, it's by AI. But that's a sign of the times, and it's 2026, so welcome to the world. But anyway, I hope this helps you guys out, and go get yourself a 44, or at least shoot one, because they are a lot of fun. See ya.